Hey everybody, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host Anne, and non-disembodied voice Justin. Oh, I assume is typing remotely because he is not in. I'm not in the Discord channel, so therefore you're stuck with me today. How is everyone? And probably a Reaper John lurking around just in case things go awry. Ah, yeah, like more winter, huh? You guys in Texas? More winter? Looks like even more winter. I remember, though, I mean, this is an exception, obviously, right? What you guys have right now is extreme. But I do remember February being the worst month. Thinking it was Friday. I know, right? Right? I also felt rather Friday this morning. You know, we're feeling Friday. If we're feeling Friday, we should just skip. We should just skip to it. That's my official opinion. You don't even know what today is. Welcome. Saltor! Hey, Saltor, it's been a while since I saw you. 3 months sub. Thanks, Saltor. It's good to see you again. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Let's get to mixing some colors while we talk. Mixing colors, living statue. I'm getting my Zen on today. Let's see here. Zen and the Art of Mini Painting. I should just do a book about it, right? Everybody else has done a Zen and the Art of. Maybe somebody else has already done Zen and the Art of Mini Painting. Has somebody? Like, you'd think that somebody would. I'm feeling Zen today. I'm feeling my Zen, Val. I did my exercises this morning, my physical therapy, my yoga, a bit of meditation, you know, all that new age stuff that I used to think was crap. And now I'm like, this is where it's at. Oh, yeah, I do like that in our... Yeah, I remember loving that about Texas when it got cold. At least I could tell myself, hey, we had 3 days of freeze, so the bugs will be so much better this summer. Definitely needs to be a book. Do we need Zen and the Art of Mini Painting? Does that need to be my book? Does that need to be it? I feel like I actually, at this point, because I do actually study Zen, and I actually, I do believe that Zen gets it right on a lot of counts. I could actually write that book. I don't know if I'm qualified to write that book. Maybe I have to study more of Zen in order to write that book, really, but I could write that book in much the same way that, like, Bruce Lee referenced Zen in his writing, where he was not not a practicing Buddhist, but he ascribed to the Zen tenets on, the way of thinking and all that. I could write that sort of mini painting book. And don't worry, it wouldn't be like a bunch of like standing on one foot meditation or anything. All right, let's see here. So we've got our bronze color, which is rich leather. The difference between doing bronze NMM and gold NMM, guys, is just that you add a lot more yellow for gold. So for me, I find that rich leather by itself, just adding white up from here, gives me a very good bronze color. And if I really want to add a touch of color, I will go up with gold highlight first, just a little bit of it though. You don't want it to get too yellow. Bronze is yellow when you polish it up, but it's a little bit of a different yellow, and you really don't want to punch it too high or it's going to read as gold. There's a blog, but it's not active, and it doesn't actually go into Zen. It just uses it. It trades on the title. Yeah. They'd probably sue me or something. But yeah, it's kind of like a cheat if you're like using that title to try to get people and then you don't actually talk about Zen. I mean, Zen stretching is pretty much just stretching in the moment, right? It's stretching and being conscious of your whole body, which is what yoga's all about. I mean, yoga and Zen... David is laughing at me yesterday because we were watching yoga with Adrienne and we were doing our yoga last night, and I finally felt strong enough to do, a fair bit of it. I didn't do anything that I felt was going to make my core unstable or that I was going to get, kind of not solid in. But at one point she talked, I don't remember what she did, but it was such a Zen thing to say. I'm like, I'm calling out on you out on your Zen, Adrienne. And David thought it was funny. I was ridiculous last night. But yeah, I mean, Zen is just like being mindful of you, right? It's like, it at its most basic center, it is like, and it's also losing the U in things, which is what confuses people, I think. And it confused me too. Like, I was like, well, you know, how am I supposed to, like, really integrate this? But what I've learned is that I'm going to do a 2 and 2 here, guys. Here, just so you see that. What I'm trying now is trying to just kind of remove my emotional, like, reaction to things. Like, you know, when something comes up, you have an initial emotional reaction to it, and it can be good or bad. So I'm just trying to, like, take that out. Like, if I find myself reacting badly or stressedly to something, I just try to take a step back and go, it's just a thing. That's very zen. It's just a thing. Let's just look at it. Go big or go home. Yeah, Texas. Well, yeah. I mean, the Texas mindset is very unique. People don't give it enough credit for how unique it is. I had a lot of Texas stereotypes in my head when I moved down there, and I was disabused of pretty much most of them. Vast majority of them. Over the many, many years I lived there. But yeah, we did yoga last night, and there was a yoga thing that I could do that David could not do. This is unusual, because I am not flexible, and he is. He has this natural, like, if David had ever really gone in for athletics, I think that he could have built quite a physique, because he's got that natural flexibility and stamina that I just don't have. And he's a freaking computer nerd. Like, if he just put a little work into it. The thing is that he doesn't want to put any work into it, so. But, oh, yeah. There's a lot of huskies in Texas, especially in North Texas. Uh-oh, I just painted myself. I painted my clothes. 1 second while I put water on it. If you paint your clothes and you notice right away, just grab some water with your finger out of your cup and just kind of, like, rub it into the spot and then scratch with your fingernail. Or a little bit, just to thin it down. If you can thin the paint, even if you can't take it off of your clothes, if you can thin it and saturate it with water before it sets, it will come out in the wash. Because essentially you're breaking the bonds between the resins so that it doesn't actually dry and set in your clothes. So, quick tip. But yeah, there must have been a really good husky breeder in North Texas, because there was, like, always these beautiful huskies all around Denton. And I believe they were, like, all from 1 or 2 breeders. So yeah, a lot of huskies actually in Texas. In Denton specifically. 13 degrees, and that's an improvement, huh? Wow, I'll pass. So this 2 and 2 mixture, which is 2 NMM gold highlight, ignore the name, we're painting bronze, I promise, and then 2 rich leather. That's about as high as I would go, I think. Yeah, Coffee, Ann, and Zen today. We're doing our Zen mini painting. Shadow Raven. But yeah, but see, the yoga thing, you know how when you crouch down on your heels, like, but ideally your feet are flat on the floor instead of up on your toes. Like, you're supposed to have your feet flat on the floor. You're supposed to be totally sunk into a crouch that you can hold, and you're supposed to have your arms in front of you, although you can brace. Like, I can do that. I can do that freaking effortlessly, and David will fall over if he tries to do that. I felt accomplished. This is the rarity. So often, like, he can do the freaking cross-legged where he just folds down onto the mat in front of him, just whoop, and I'm just like, just stop, just go away, just get out of here. I don't want to see you. I can be kind of inclined with my arms down in front of me, and it's just yeah, not. And doing yoga is like, yeah, easy mode. Can't do anything more. I do acknowledge that I will get better. It is a journey, just like everything, right? Like your mini painting. Oh, we brought it full circle. There we go. 82. Sorry, not sorry, Podell. Sorry, not sorry. Don't be embarrassed for your weather. You're lucky, because you know what? Then it's going to be the summertime, and you're going to be like, oh, and all those folks up north are going to be like, it's a gorgeous 70-degree day. Hee hee. Yeah, there's payoffs in every state, right? Yeah, Royal Llama. I saw that Florida was kind of wee. My godfather's in Florida. My Uncle Elwood. Out west. In Fort Myers. Alrighty, so now we've got a succession there. I'm going to do a 50-50 mix here. Sometimes I'll do a 50-50 mix just to assess the color to see if I think it's right. Remember that I put a bit more yellow into this. If I decide that it's not coming up yellow enough, then I may actually put in more. But I'm kind of trying to hit the sweet spot here. And I'd also like to, I'm going to do a comparison real quick. And take this up. And that's much more orange. Up. So we can see the difference. So like between these two colors, let me get some of that and mix it in. Uh-oh, don't get down there. Get out of there. So I'm mixing a couple colors here to kind of test my bronze highlights. There we go. So you can see how this one is more browny orangey and this one is more yellowy. So really, you can get a pretty good highlight just using rich leather, but adding a little bit of yellow in does give you a little bit more toward the goldish bronze highlight, like a scraped raw bronze, a polished bronze. Yeah, I gotta go Sunday before you can go for a walk. Yes. I think Florida is pretty confused. But, I don't know. Florida's an odd state. Florida's just an odd state. It's a very weird state. I was just there last year, so visiting my uncle. I had forgotten about the roadkill alligators until I drove across the state and saw several of them. Another day, another 10 inches of snow. Dear me. You're going to be, like, buried till spring. They're going to find you in the spring, dog bother. Yeah. I mean, there's something cool about it when you get that kind of weather, and then there's something kind of nervousness, you know, inducing about it. All right, we got our colors. Let's do some highlights. I decided I wanted to hit the bronze. I want some green also. An excellent color to use starting out for verdigris is Ancient Oak. I also love, ideally, my favorite color to use for this is Canceled, this Peacock Green. You can use Brilliant Green, which is the color up from it in the triad, which is 9227, Brilliant, and add just a little bit of Clear Blue, or Void Blue, or Ezrin Blue, or your intense dark blue of your choice, really. And you will get a good verdigris color. Yeah, pipes freezing. Yeah, done with the winter crap, huh? Yeah, hitting an alligator with a card does not sound like fun. I agree. Yeah, it's Wrath of the Groundhog. I'm with you. And we must have pissed off the Groundhog somehow, War Shadow. The Groundhog is like going for godhood, and he's just like, you know, I'm going to teach you guys a lesson about who you mess with and who you make fun of on this day. Oh, I do not need that, though. That is not Ancient Oak. I must have Ancient Oak somewhere else in my box. Where are you, Ancient Oak? That was Swamp Green. The part of Ancient Oak today will be played by Swamp Green. Actually, you could use almost any dark green for verdigris. News. Some of them, I just find that the ones that are a little more bluish are a little better. Ancient Oak is kind of like, can use, but it's very muted, so it's going to give you a very kind of, it's not going to, you aren't going to see a lot of the green if you use Ancient Oak for verdigris. If you're going to use it, then probably, whoever shouted Jumanji at the end of 2020. Yeah, we do. We do Rax, but it's a light verdigris. And I tend to like a mixture of dark and light. So what I did here on the leg. There, let's get this out of the frame. Let's get that out of the frame. There you go. Now you can see it. Boop. And so what I did here on the leg is you start with your darker verdigris colors. And then where the verdigris is building up, you shift to a lighter one. So what you can do is use a darker green and then switch to the verdigris green, which is essentially, you know, how I've done this. I didn't use the verdigris color because I just mixed white into my green. That's the advantage of using a greenish blue or a bluish green, is that when you add white into it, you get a good verdigris color for it. But this color that I mixed is pretty much right in line with verdigris. I make the verdigris because sometimes when you're doing copper, you may not want that dark discoloration, that dark green discoloration. You may want to go more toward the light spots faster. because copper tends to go brown first, a lot like this bronze has. Bronze does tend to do it too, because bronze is a copper alloy. But bronze, I see more dark green verdigris a lot in when I'm out, like, in looking at pictures and observing verdigris in general. So for copper, which is why that verdigris green is in the copper NMM triad, you tend to get a lot less dark green buildup. You might get some blue and some middle green buildup, but you tend to get a lot less of that kind of dark bluey green that I see in bronze. I made that color though, and I made it strictly in accordance to photos and in real life copper discoloration, so it is valid, baby. No, it's not copper. It's not verdigris light. It's actual verdigris. There are so many. I get your joke though. There are so many colors in verdigris though. If you have any of the secret weapon paints, I believe we've got a moderately dark, like a deep blue and deep green verdigris in there, along with a lighter green verdigris. That's a little bit warmer than the verdigris in Master Series. Hello, Agent Meeple. Thank you for the raid. It's a tiny but mighty raid. So what we're doing today is we're doing bronze. This bronze is mostly going to be weathered, so it's just going to have some areas we're going to bring up with highlights. I decided I really wanted to get on that today, the highlighting part. So this leg is kind of open to the light coming down here. This part of the leg is going to be in shadow. I'm going to put my highlight back toward here because of that, because the angle of the leg and where the light would fall. Whereas here, the leg is bending very far forward here, so you're definitely going to get some shadow. You might get some reflected light up under it, but you're not going to get a really bright highlight. So keep that in mind. Oh, are we eating Twitchy Twitch? Hi, Shuttle. How's it going? Yeah, you could use, I mean, considering that verdigris should always be a opaque paint, Francis, because it's like rust on iron. It's totally matte, because it's a kind of a buildup, right? You don't get any shine to it. So the only way to do, like, good verdigris on metallics is with opaque paint. Like, it's really, you would never use an actual colored metallic for verdigris. You would only use the regular paint. And yes, it is the correct color in either case. When you do weathering on metallics, I showed Mr. Grumpy yesterday again, and Mr. Grumpy has a lot of weathering on his front, and it's done depending on what I want it to be. So for the oily parts of Mr. Grumpy's armor, where it looks like he oiled it and just had dirt stick to it, I did use a gloss sealer to help do that. You guys will see how to do that. Tomorrow is Dwarf Day? Yeah, tomorrow is Dwarf Day. We don't have a ton of room on the Dark Iron Dwarf. I wish I would have noticed the giant version of him, but I don't think I would have wanted to paint the giant version of him. I'd rather paint the little one. So little bits of white, and then I'm going to kind of blend them in with my highlight. Those are probably a bit big to be spot highlights, specular highlights. But I'm trying to essentially bring the light up where I feel it would be. I probably need some liner too in case I miss my, or lose my lining. But I want that light. Haha, Nomad Zeke. I just didn't feel like painting the large. Like, I don't think I would feel like painting the large version. These guys are supposed to be, like, he's a player character. I'm trying to alternate between player characters and monsters. I feel like the big one of him is definitely a monster and would take a lot longer to paint. All right. So now I'm kind of mixing between the highlight color I made, which is half NMM gold highlight and half rich leather, and I'm mixing little bits of white in to just kind of spot highlight some of this bronze on the leg. And when I do that, I'm going to ask myself too, do I need a little bit of a highlight coming down from that? Like, there's a little bit of verdigris and stuff here, but do I need a little bit of highlight? Kind of suggested there. Like, there's a little bit of a scraped part, maybe. We'll see how I like that. I'm going to lighten it. I'm going to mix in some rich leather. It'll be kind of up and down highlight because, if it does work, because of the shape of this greave. Greave is a cylinder. It's wrapped all around her leg. When you get cylinders, you get pretty much highlights on like four sides. But you figure out your main highlight, and it should go up and down. It goes with the shape of the thing. So here I'm mostly focusing it on the upper side because that's where the calf bulges out. And also I've got all this verdigris here, which does not imply a lot of rub off. But if it's going to rub off anywhere, it's probably going to rub off here where these grooves would like touch each other. So suggesting a little bit of scrape lets me put a little bit of light in there, a little bit of highlight in there, which is nice for detail. Put some water in my Yo Pendrake. Yeah, except that would take too much time, and I don't like the model that much. To be frank, Pendrake. Like, to me, it would be like doing a repaint, only I'd have to repaint it even bigger. And I don't like repaints. Like, I'm just like, okay, I've presented what I can. Because remember, I'm always looking at these with, what can I teach? That's always what I'm looking at, is what can I teach with this model? And I would not be able to teach anything different. Like, the big model would let me maybe go into more detail. But it allows for the exact same teaching opportunities as the small model. In general. It might give me a little bit of more wiggle room, right? But in which case, I should have done the big one. But then, like I said, it would take much longer to do the big one. So, trouble's here. Cool. All right, so we got that nailed. This is going to be all in shadow, but there may be some under reflection. So you never take your under reflection up as much. But it's nice to include one because it does give the appearance of your metal being reflective. So in this case, I'm going to catch some light coming up at the underside of the knee here. And I'm using my my highlight color, my 50/50 rich leather and NMM gold highlight. And this is a rounded surface, so I'm making my highlight rounded, as it should be. If I feel like I'm losing some of my dark or mid-tone, then I'm going to come back in with my rich leather and blend that in like so. Go out for a bit for PT. Yeah, I did my stretches this morning. I'm really enjoying this whole starting stretching before the stream, guys. That and it makes my back like much happier. Like, really makes a difference in my day to just start out with some good stretches and PT stuff. All right, so, and then if we want a more under reflection, we're probably going to be getting it down here. But we gotta be careful with that because light will absolutely reflect back up at the metal. It's part of what you need to see with NMM. But we can never take it as bright as we took it where the light is actually falling onto the metal. And also I'm missing a dark shadow here. Remember what we've got here? We've got a bright highlight to dark shadow, then it blends back up to another highlight. So we're missing our shadow, our band of shadow, which would normally fall here. So we should grab some paint and remedy that. Cool, Royal Llama. Yeah, okay, so the things to remember with your well palette to get your mileage out of it. Use bigger paint puddles. I use at least 6 to 8 drops in these. And that includes water, so, you don't have to use that many drops of paint. But more paint is going to stay at the proper consistency for longer. Second, make a note of kind of how much water you use as you move through painting something. So when you're base coating, if you do a 4-to-1, and then you maybe do a 6-to-1, you maybe make a note of which one you like better, right? Try them both, see how they work, and make a note. The well palette is so good because if you are relatively new to the hobby, it makes it very easy for you to test and repeat results. So it's very scientific that way. So when you get yourself an empty dropper and put water in it, or you can just use a big brush and just drop drops from your water jar into it, depending on how you roll. But make a note of that. Like, keep an eye on your paint consistency. And what this allows you to do is when you're trying to learn things like layering for blending, is you can thin down to like 2:1 and try it and see how it works. And then thin with another drop of water, maybe down to 1.5:1 and see how that works. It lets you do trial and error and test things so that you can start to get a feel for it. And once you've got it kind of locked down, then you can really start internalizing it. And that's how you get to be the painter who doesn't even have to think about how much to thin their paint. You just know. And eventually you just know by the feel of it, whether it's going to work or not. So big paint puddles, water in your paint, at least 1 drop of water, always, because that extra fluid is going to give you more drying time. Essentially, that extra fluid is going to have to evaporate out of your paint before your paint starts to really thicken. So it gives your paint more longevity to always use 1 drop of water. If you feel like you should be going full strength, then just do like a 6 or 7 drops of paint and 1 drop of water, and that won't impact it all that much. Yeah, the smaller basins are definitely key to this, Soltar. Absolutely. If you're using a big one, a big basin flower palette, not nearly as efficient as these little holes. So these palettes, they are awesome. We will keep buying them, and they will keep making them because we keep buying them. All right, let's see. What do I want to use? Brown liner today? I don't think I had an actual shadow color on this one that I was using. I think I was just using whatever I felt like. I was using walnut for at least part of it, I know. But I think I'm going to switch to brown liner. I want a more subtle. I want to be able to thin it faster. And if you haven't, Royal Llama, watch my YouTube video on Reaper, from ReaperCon, the class I did on thinning Msp Paints. Because that talks about the stuff that I didn't just mention, which is, that as the color gets lighter, you have to add more water to get it to act the same way. Stuff like that. Because opacity is going to impact your results. And since our paints, well, all paints do this to some extent, but Msp is very noticeable that our paint varies in coverage by the pigment. Because sometimes you want transparency and sometimes you don't. Cool, yeah. Especially once you get that palette, give that video a watch. It should help you a lot, Royal Llama, as you start to use the well palette. A lot. Like, almost must-watch material if you're going to get mileage out of a well palette. Not many people talk about like how to get, it's like, why does a well palette work? A lot of people talk about why a wet palette works. And the reason for that, I think, is because the wet palette was kind of like came in after the well palette. And so it felt like it needed to educate. And so it did. And that's great. But then the well palette people didn't really educate because they'd always just had, well, we just use a well palette. So I try to educate about why they're different and why both are good for different styles. All right, I'm just trying to introduce a little band of shadow here by doing some quick mixes between my rich leather and my brown liner. I chose brown liner because brown liner is usually easier to blend. It thins a lot faster than walnut. Walnut is very opaque, and so you can find it hard to blend. So I'm just pretty much setting up a bar of dark here where we would have one. So you really have a bar of darkness going down between 2 highlights, and you can kind of see it. Let me see if I can rig it here. Almost. My light's at a little bit of the wrong angle, but you can see the shadow there, and you can kind of see a little bit of a shadow up top. The problem is I'm getting a lot of window light in. But if we had it perfectly, there we go. So kind of bars of shadow and light, and then you've got a little bit of reflection here of the actual, because this is mirror bright. But, I mean, the brush ferrule is a great way to look at cylindrical objects and how the light falls on them, So this is definitely picking up my 2 light sources. Technically 3 if you include the window, but... All right, Twistoma. That would be poison to me. Like, I'm so sensitive to coffee at this point. But rot your gut while you can. Some people get over-abused coffee forever, and I'm super jealous. I used to drink like 3 cups in the morning. But those days are long gone. Thanks, Guts. Don't get chronic gastrointestinal disorders is the takeaway from this. Don't abuse your body, it might decide to abuse you back. There we go. Getting some shadow in here. I need to get this leg at least blocked in. I want to make sure these guys are reading correctly. I've got a little bit of under reflection. I do want to bring up a little bit up the middle there, just a tiny bit. And it's like the verdigris complicates things here. And I probably, if I would have thought about it, I would have done these highlights before I did the verdigris. So I wouldn't have to kind of evade it as I do this. But, you know, I forgot and I got overexcited about doing verdigris on stream. And so now I'll pay. Now I will pay the price. It is not anything to be irritated about. It just is. Also very zen. Told you I'm very zen today. All right, so we got a little bit of a highlight coming up there. So you can see the direct correlation between that reflection, this highlight, and hopefully down here we've got some verdigris. But yeah, it's lovely verdigris. It's just kind of getting in the way right now. This happens with life, right? It's a lovely X, but it's kind of getting in the way right now. All right, let's get some shadow in here. I need a band of shadow. And I need a band of shadow up here. And remember, the more mid-tone you have between your highlight and your shadow, the more burnished and dull the area will look. So if you have a very sharp highlight with a very sharp shadow right under it, it's going to look like it's chrome shiny. And the more you pull those two things apart, the more, more satin, and then to, kind of just a little bit glossy, a little bit of a softer finish of metal. As long as you've got your white highlights, you're still going to come off as metal, but how shiny you are. It's a lovely lilac bush, but it's kind of in the way right now. Yes. Zen in the Art of Chainsaw Gardening. So there's one that's not out there yet. I'm pretty sure. But first you would have to become an expert in the chainsaw so that you could use it or use it and not use it. Also, I know it's getting 5 stars on like Audible and Amazon right now, but you guys, like, if you at all like Bruce Lee, martial arts, and like self-helpery at all, self-improvement, like, go out and get the book Be Water, My Friend by Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter. It does like a magnificent job of kind of talking about like a lot of the common topics about how to kind of improve yourself and couching it in examples and Bruce Lee's own writings and stuff like that, because he was very much into self-improvement, obviously, for anybody who knows anything about Bruce Lee. But it's a wonderful book. It's extremely inspirational. She talks a lot about getting through grief, which actually is helping me a lot with the Kiri loss, because of course she, lost her father when she was a tiny child and then never really dealt with that, and then lost Brandon, her brother, on the set of The Crow in that shooting accident. So if that sounds useful to you, pick up the book. I highly recommend it. I am listening to it on audiobook. She narrates it herself, and I think that actually does make a big difference. So yeah, just a little aside there. I'm really, really enjoying the book. I have about 45 minutes left in it. She really makes a lot of stuff very accessible. I'm really impressed with her. I hope she does another book. It's called Be Water, My Friend, at Big Apple. It's written by Shannon Lee, who is Bruce Lee's daughter. And she took over curating her father's writings. Like, I assume she took over the job from her mom. And she wrote this book kind of as a reach out herself, I think, and to just to help people But it talks a lot about her dad's practices, both martial arts and philosophically, and her own journey kind of with them to try to kind of understand herself and work with her stuff. So it's just a wonderful book. It's getting 5 stars everywhere I looked. It's really well done. And if you like Bruce Lee, it's also fun for that. Like, even if you're not looking for even if you don't need help, even if you're not looking to improve yourself on any level because you're already awesome, it's an awesome, she just says some awesome stuff about her dad and shares some stuff. I mean, I'm sure she admits, that her memories are nothing. She shares some talks that she's had with her mom, though, about him and things like that. Like, she once asked her mom if Bruce Lee ever just took a day off to just rest, or just a few hours off to just rest, and her mom looked at her and went, no. Oh, has she? Oh, good. Yeah, Shannon Lee. Awesome. Well, now I have to look up Warrior, because she's, I love the book. I love the book. And I've always been interested in Bruce Lee. I've always liked martial arts movies. So, this is just an excuse now for me to dive off the deep end in that. So see the little bit of a highlight there. We've got a little bit of a highlight going down there. This is a difficult surface to highlight with NMM because it is so very, because of the cylinder, but it's also got bulbous parts. It's got details. It's not an easy NMM surface. Yeah, her book is fantastic. So if you're into that, if that sounds fun to you, do it. Go for it. She has a very unique way of framing things in relating them to her dad's writing and philosophy. And I found it very useful. Like, it may be the best book on moving through grief that I've yet read. And that's only a small part of it, but that part is just so impactful. Or at least it was for me. Everybody has different takeaways from different books. And you may even have different takeaways at different times of your life, right? Depending on where you are. Oh, okay. I don't necessarily like Kung Fu Westerns, but I love Kung Fu movies, so. Yeah, where can you watch it, Big Apple? Yeah, exactly. She doesn't really pull punches about her dad. Like, it's obvious that she admires her dad, Shadow Raven, although she does admit that, he was very arrogant and very hot-tempered, especially when he was younger. But in general, she's doing this to celebrate his life. Like, she's not looking to throw stones or to judge. She's just looking to kind of make his writing more accessible to people on a more fundamental, useful level. I'm going to do some shading in here. Just a little bit of really dark, shadowy liner here. And then I'm going to actually mix that with rich leather, bring it up, and accentuate this shadow up here. Need it to be a little darker. Otherwise, it's just going to look like stone. If you don't have this interplay between shadow and highlight, your metal's going to look like rock. You gotta have it. That's the number one problem when people try NMM, other than getting their highlight placement or not understanding highlight placement. The biggest issue is not making their shadows dark enough and not getting that interplay between really light and really dark. That contrast is key. Oh, HBO Max? Okay. I don't know if we have HBO Max right now. I think David's got Disney right now. He wanders back and forth depending on what he wants to watch. He's watching Mandalorian now, so he is on Disney. Alrighty. And get a little bit more of a hard line here. And I think I want a little bit more rich leather here, bringing that up, blend it in. There we are, a little bit better. probably a little bit too, like, it's showing up a little bit light on the camera. You can also paint rich leather over the whole thing to kind of bring it down a notch. Alrighty. Yeah, I will admit that I am into self-help books these days. That's trying to work through all sorts of stuff. Some of them are silly, although most of the ones I pick are the more practical ones. Usually you can avoid the totally silly ones if you read carefully the reviews. But I can definitely become a better Anne is my philosophy, so... I'm a pretty good Anne. I'm not a terrible Anne. I can be happy with most of my Anne-ness, but you know. Alrighty. Highlights, that's looking a little bit shiny and better. Now I do want kind of a dull sheen here. I am, however, that's too much down there, so knock that down. Too much. I keep going back and forth down here. Like, I feel like I need more, but then I go too far. So maybe I'll knock out that top highlight, and I'll just accentuate a little bit of that lower one. And this is just an example of how all of us, like, even those of us who are pros at NMM, like, sometimes we'll just do something. If it's an unusual surface, we'll kind of stop, and we'll have to think about it. And you just don't lose that. Like, there are times when you have to kind of stop, look at it, listen to your gut, assess with your brain, go for it. The 4 agreements. Huh, I'll look, let me write that one down. I always like a referral to a good book. The 4 agreements. I also believe that most self-help books are fundamentally teaching the same stuff, but it's the way they couch it that's important. Some of it is going to resonate with you, some of it is not. Thanks for that reference there, Big Apple. I'll look that one up. Alrighty. But yeah, just like with painting, I mean, painting in a lot of ways has been therapy for me over the years. Just because you get in the zone and you just relax and you just focus on this and you don't have to focus on all the other stuff in your life that needs attention or, you know, is kind of screwed up or whatever. So, Zen in the art of mini painting, it's a thing. I'm gonna grab some verdigris. We're gonna do the breastplate, and then I'm gonna also be dodging down to finish up this part. I want to get a lot of that this bronze really laid out today. Yeah. Now we want a rounded highlight up here because this is rounded surface. You always want the highlight is always going to emulate the shape of the surface. Shape of the highlight, shape of the surface. Always going to be influencing each other. The highlight has that shape because of how light is touching on that surface. Just trying to diffuse the light. We are going to need to have a shadow. So a shadow. See those dark lines, those dark blobs I just put down? And then there's going to be an under reflection right up under there. Dibs on a signed copy. Yeah, it does. Well, and that's a lot. I mean, a lot of meditation is that way. I mean, I would like to see, and they've gotten close to doing this in studies, but I was talking to David a while ago about how I think, like, I would like to see a study on the brain states of artists and, like, miniature painters and, you know, that sort of thing, when they're in the zone, like when, or even writers, because I think I get in the same kind of creative zone when I do my writing, and have a study of those and then compare them to people who are meditating and see how close it gets, right? Like, it seems like there should be a correlation. Because when you're meditating, well, given it's kind of different, right? Because you're focusing or you're unfocusing. Although you are kind of focusing on the breath to the exclusion of everything else when you're meditating, or you're focusing on whatever you're focusing on. For me, I do my meditation by the fountain, so I focus on how the light is on the water. That's my happy zone. But like when I was at Reaper, when I was starting a meditation practice, I would hyper focus on micro detail around me, and that was the way that I blocked out the noise. So totally mini painting satisfies that requirement. I'd just be curious. I'm just always, as an artist and somebody who meditates, I think there are definite correlations. So now I'm bringing up the light down there, guys. And you need to bring it up enough for it obviously to be a highlight. Like, so you don't want it to be too bright, but the skin here is reflecting a lot of light. So we want a little bit more than that. See, you can see that hitting the inside edge there, which is great. So I have to hit it. I have to get it more up on this side. Hey there, Noland. Thank you for the raid. Wow, that's a juicy raid too. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Reaper Miniatures. Let me back out here on the living statue so you guys can see what we're working on today. I am Anne. I work for Reaper. I created the Reaper Master Series paint line when I was working on site for Reaper. Now I'm remote, living out west, and I'm doing streams to teach people how to use the paint. So that's what we do here. I was also staff painter for many years. Nice to meet you all. Yes, welcome. So today we're working on living statue. Let me see. I can do it. There we go. So this is sculpted by Jean Van Horn. One of them is definitely meant to be metal. This one I'm dubious because the head was sculpted more like stone, so I decided to go stone, with parts of her that are turning to life being metal. I decided to do a statue that was actually coming to life instead of just doing a statue that was moving. Oh, thanks for the resub, Dogfather. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're doing her metal today. We're doing her non-metallic metal. So I've been working on her greaves. Now I'm working on the battle bikini. And maybe one of this strap here, or we'll make that a color probably. This should be bronze. But, so yeah, we're working on bronze. I'm talking about highlighting various surfaces if you want to create the appearance of metal without using metallic paints. But yeah, she's turning from flesh to stone, or stone to flesh. She has just noticed, apparently, an intruder to her domain. I have the shield not attached yet because I want to put a little bit more detail on the back with the stone. And I want to be able to easily paint it without having to hold on to this whole thing. And I also want to be able to paint the stone texture here, back here behind, on her foot, and the greave up here without having to fight around here. So usually that's my judgment call when I'm looking at a model and whether to put it together before or after I paint it is, can I easily get to everything underneath if I attach this limb or whatever? And the answer here is no. I really can't get in here to paint very clearly. There's a lot of shadow, so I left that arm off. Yeah, it's also the effect you could do if you were doing that kind of effect right down off. If you were doing somebody turning to stone, you could also use this effect. And really, the only thing I'm doing is kind of create like streaks or ribbons and interspersing like the skin color with the stone color. And the key here is you've got to have enough solid skin and enough solid stone to sell each of the effects individually, so that when you mix them, then you really get that kind of like changing effect going on. If you don't have enough like other pure stone and pure skin areas to suggest it clearly enough, then the eye's not going to get what's going on. So Huge believer of sub-assembly. Yeah. I hate not being able to get my brush everywhere too. Yeah, I tend to, although at the same time I hate it when models have too many parts and I'm having to paint them individually, Nalin, so I totally, there are times, where I do put it together despite my best interest. But this is not one of those. This is so obviously blocking everything that, yeah, not so much. So, all right, let us get back. Zoomies. There we are. So we're working on the breastplate. And I'm doing an under reflection to show that light is reflecting back up from the environment onto this surface, which is necessary because if you're trying to create the illusion that something is metallic, you have to suggest one, that it's shiny, and then you have to suggest that it's reflective. And the way you suggest it's reflective is you show light in areas where it would reflect back up at the metal, and the light, direct light from overhead, would not be hitting it. So we are accentuating highlights. I think I need my shadows to actually come up a little bit. I think they're actually too far down. So the way we determine shadow placement is we kind of look at where our light source is coming from. So it's coming straight down. We're going to draw some lines here. So the minute this surface turns away from the light, that's where my shadow should be. And what I'm seeing here is that my light actually goes down a little bit too far, and my shadow should actually be up a little bit, which would give me more room underneath here to suggest this under reflection that I've got going on here. So, hey, Gallifire, how's it going? Thanks, Steinoff. I'm glad you like it. I really like her. I like how she's turning out. I really enjoy doing this sort of effect, this magic to life or stone to life or stone to magic. When you're taking one state and you're trying to show people that it's transitioning to a different state, I really enjoy doing this sort of thing. I think it's a lot of fun. And it really lets you spice up this sort of model where you might originally look at Living Statue and go, well, that's going to be a boring paint. But this makes it a really exciting and cool paint. So I'm going to bring my shadow up, and we're using brown liner for that because it's a little more transparent. So now I've got my shadow up more around my highlight. And if you remember what I said earlier, guys, the closer and the less transition you have between your highlight and your shadow, the shinier the area will look. And let's see if I can get a nice, and because it is metal, it should come up to pretty bright white, but I need to watch that. That's actually not the right position because, so I probably need to at the very least broaden it out. I'm using kind of a stipply stroke with my layered paint here, kind of to work out where my highlight needs to be. That's too broad, so I need to come back in. It's going to be more of a spot highlight. The less, okay, so the more satiny your surface, the less chrome shiny it is, the more your highlight will spread out. And the shinier, glossier the surface is, the more the highlight will pinpoint. So actually, I feel like I need to kind of take that down a little bit and place that highlight down a little bit more. So where the light is going to bounce is toward your eye, is where the brightest highlight is. And usually that's where the surface goes kind of perpendicular. Because if somebody's standing out here, then you got to think about this as a mirror. So when does the angle of that mirror bounce the light toward the viewer's eye? It's probably right about there, which is not on the top. So that's where we need to put our highlight. And we could kind of block in a bit of highlight there just to see if that looks better, and I think it does. So I'm going to round out that highlight because we're working on a round surface. So if we're working on non-metallic metal on a rounded surface, our highlights and shadows need to be rounded as well, because that's the way the light works. And I go back and forth a lot here as I'm trying to blend, because you're trying to blend from pretty much white to black in a very small area. So you're using thin paint, and I also go back to my rich leather, which is my base color, a lot to kind of glaze over and reshape and blend in and do all that kind of thing so that I can get the effect that I want. Now I've got a shadow, a highlight, I've got an under reflection there that I need to bring up a little bit more. Your under reflection should never be as light as your top highlight, but it should be significant if it's a really reflective metal. So if we had decided to make this more like covered in verdigris and tarnished, you wouldn't get this strong of an under reflection. But I've decided to go more shiny up here as she gets closer to life. I think I'm going to go more shiny. Whereas I'll keep heavy verdigris and kind of like implying that she'd been weathered down here in a weird kind of way. Again, making this more active and lifelike. Because it's where she's bringing her hand up with the weapon that I want a lot of action, like right in this area. She's seen somebody, and unfortunately I couldn't paint her head as if it was living because it already is sculpted like stone. But the under reflection is huge because metal has two qualities, Llama. Two: shiny and reflective. Two separate things. So think about that when you are painting NMM, is you have to convey both of those. You can't just convey shiny without being reflective. They're two different components and they're tackled with two different light placements. And in the case of the shiny, it's a light and shadow placement. So light is going to bounce back at this metal from all over the place. And if we were working with a silver metal instead of a gold metal, we could introduce a lot of color into this. You can still introduce subtle color into a golden metal. It's just certain colors don't, really translate. They'll mute out. They'll become more like just shadows. But you can introduce things that are close to gold on the color wheel. So you could introduce some red. If this was really close to her, like if she had a red shield held right down here, we could definitely put some red in the under reflection. If we're trying to suggest that she's in a forest and we're using a lot of green reflections, then we could do that. But this model, that's a lot harder to sell because I've got a lot of verdigris going on here already. So I'm like, not so much. Yeah, if you wanted it to look really, really cool like this, she's taken, I don't know I forget how many sessions we've worked on her, but she's taken a while to do to this. I would call this my gallery standard. It's not a competition standard model by any means, as far as my competition level work, but it's definitely a gallery piece. So it could go in the Reaper gallery, and I would be pretty happy with it. I need to fix that. I've got a little bit of interrupted lining down here. So I'm going to grab my brown liner. Make sure I've got that line. She actually comes completely naked, and I just converted her in very minor ways so that she would be Twitch friendly. There. Excellent. That's a nice strong line. Now that looks metal. I need to still bring up the highlight to pure white. I took it down just a tad, so it's not. But essentially with metal, you're going to need that pure white highlight. I do need just a little bit. I need to reshape this just a little bit. And fine tuning like this on NMM surfaces is not unusual. Some people, I know some painters who have kind of an instinctual grasp of light. I'm dating one, and it's cheaty and it's not fair. But most of us have to stop and think about it. And for me, lighting is definitely something I learned after. So there we go. So that pure white highlight really brings up the light and makes it look more shiny. Now what I can also do is bring up my under reflection just a little bit to be a little bit brighter. Now that I've got that really bright highlight up there, I can sell my effect down here even more. And you want your brighter highlight to be kind of toward the bottom, because that's the area where light is going to be bouncing right back up. As you move out on this breastplate, it's going to be farther away from any surface that's reflecting light, like the skin. So essentially your brightest under reflection goes right up wherever close to that surface, the reflective surface, and then it fades out. So you can do good NMM without having blending in hand, but it's when you are become better at blending, that your NMM really starts to take off. So a little bit of that extra highlight there. And I'll do it on the inside here, where I already had taken it up kind of high. Yeah, there we go. That's cool. I like that. Excellent. Excellent. I do have to figure out what the bands are. They probably should make them red, actually. And I think that's going to be the answer. They probably need to be the same red And sometimes I do this a lot where there's Heraldic Red is our red that we're using. It's a nice high coverage red from Bones line of Reaper miniatures. Msp Bones, which is our higher coverage line. But sometimes these things where I'm like, I have an accessory or an armband or something, and I'm not sure what color I want to make it up top and up front, and I'll just go. I'll paint the rest of everything, and then it usually will tell me exactly what I need to do. So, especially here where I'm trying to repeat the accent color being red, everything else is neutrals, right? Grays and skin tone and bronze. Like, everything else is mostly neutral. So, here I'm trying to repeat colors over the model. So the shield helps because otherwise all our red is up here. But if I introduced a little bit of red on the band here and here, then that even more helps the eye kind of go back and forth. We've got a very dynamic angled composition here where she's looking down in that direction, and then we've got the red going in the same direction. So that's all like color composition stuff. And then using a little bit of green verdigris, just little touches of it, helps to intensify that red and give it something to play off of. Oh, sure, no problem. Stay lurk. Get food. Food is important. Food important. Yeah, paint bravely. Like, seriously. The model, because it's Bones plastic, it is not pricey at all, so. Yeah, and enough if you do come and watch more often, I will answer any questions you have if you're a beginning painter. Like, I like to teach beginners and intermediate level painters. So, no question is dumb. Like, ask. Just ask. Even if it seems obvious, even if you're like, oh, everybody already knows this, I don't know why I'm asking this question, ask it anyway. Because for every one of you that actually asked the question, there's 5 other people in chat who are too timid to ask the question who are going to be happy that you asked it. So, do feel free. Do go for it. Yes, I will tangent at the drop of a hat. You don't even have to drop the hat. You just have to wave it around a little bit. But that's because this show isn't just about painting a model from start to finish. This show is about all things mini painting at all levels. So I can talk about something more advanced, like light placing on bronze. And boy, doesn't that look like bronze now, guys? Like, wait, I'm going to put a little green shadow underneath there, and it's going to look even more like bronze. But it's about all things mini painting. Like, it really is about pro tips, but it's also, when I say pro tips, I don't mean that these are just tips for pros at the pro level. I mean, these are tips for anybody from a pro at all levels. You know, like, we always, as we get older, as we get better at something, often I find that people do lose a little bit of the memory of what it's like to be a beginner. I went into this hobby knowing that, and I fought against that. I have tried really hard to remember what it was like when I was just learning these techniques, and to channel that into trying to make these techniques as accessible for the rest of you as I can. For me, that's the holy grail. For me, the holy grail is not winning at Crystal Brush or some other international level painting competition. For me, the holy grail is to make this hobby accessible and like fun and, you know, accepting and to get people excited about it. Like, my favorite thing is to meet people, to run into people at ReaperCon who maybe got a silver or even a gold medal, and it was the first time they've managed to hit that level, and they talk to me about how I helped them do it because of videos or because of talking to them or because of, you know, Twitch or whatever. Like, that's my moment. Like, winning competitions is fun and all, but being a positive influence on the people who grow to love this hobby, that's priceless. That's where my heart is. And I think that sort of attitude is moves on with you, right? Like, there are people who I taught who are now teaching at ReaperCon who have the same attitude. And I think that's ridiculously important in keeping our hobby growing. Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, even I'm still growing in the hobby, Denoff. I'm constantly looking for ways to expand my game. Honestly, Mefferol, if you are on the Reaper Discord, Discord is probably the best place. If you're one of my patrons, then I know that people give feedback in the work in progress channel, And I'm sure that Reaper has similar channels to post your work. So that's some of the best, but make sure that when you post your item, say, I really would like feedback. And if you can, be even more specific. I really would like feedback on the skin, you know, and even tell people if you want it, say, hey, be tough on me, or go easy on me, I'm new. You know, give us an idea of what level you're at, what you're specifically looking to get from feedback, and you know, whether we should go easy or hard on you. But I think Discords are the way to go. There, Quindy just put a link up onto the Reaper Discord. Do you know, Quindy, which channel is kind of the feedback channel or the work in progress channel on there? The Reaper community is super, super friendly, and they will go super easy on you unless you tell them to go hard on you. So that's, always state what you would like, what kind of feedback you're looking for. And with that, always take it with a grain of salt, because, you know, different people are going to interpret different things different ways, and you can always choose to ignore feedback if you feel it doesn't speak to what you were trying to get at, but, you know, listen anyway. Yes, I am on on that channel. My preference is, yay, I painted a thing, and the reply you needed is just yay, and that's cool. That's cool, Francis. That's all. And sometimes that's it, right? I finished a thing. I need somebody to say happy with. Yay. And that's valid. Like, it's totally valid. The other thing is, I do have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/paintingbig is my moniker on that. And I also do my own Twitch stream. But yeah, Painting Big Dragon. But yeah, so that's my Patreon, and I do much more focused stuff. Like, we do go off on tangents with this particular stream, and like I said, that's part of the point, because the more topics we hit on, the more education, the more value that people get out of watching this show. So it is important. I'm getting some green going on here so that I can add just a tiny touch of green to the shadows up there. Bryce, yes. No, David is going to give you hardcore feedback straight up, no matter what. Be warned. Be warned. He is very direct. But I like that, Bryce. See, I like that. I would much rather have that than people, you know, just kind of trying to tell me what I want to hear, or, you know, kind of pulling punches, or being just encouraging. It's like, at this point, I don't need encouraging. I need to know what's wrong. Yeah. Oh, Dungeon Saga, yeah. If what I call it is cottage cheese paint. So if it's clumpy and grainy, your paint froze, just contact Reaper for a replacement. You may want to wait until Texas unfreezes, because right now Reaper is frozen. It's in the middle of that deep freeze. So I would probably hold off. I would probably contact them to say, hey, I got frozen paint. And I would like some more paint, but not until after your glacier has melted. Or you could just hold off. I mean, if it's just a few days, it's not gonna make a difference. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit of green into that shadow, just a little bit, because I've got green in these shadows, so let's just go for it. That's one of the defining things you can do with bronze that I really like, is just to put a lot of dark green in your shadows. It will read as verdigris. Then you're all happy. And like I said, it's going to play off of the red now. So. Okay, so the feedback, Hobby Corner, Work in Progress, Whips, and Hobby Corner Paint Jobs Reaper, and Hobby Corner Non-Reaper. So if you have a non-Reaper piece you want feedback on, post it in non-Reaper. You know, you can put your Reaper paint job up if it is finished and you want feedback, final feedback on it before you truly finish it. Or you want final feedback on it, like, just, you're not meaning to change it up, but you want to see what you did well or poorly. And that's valuable too, is don't feel like you have to change something. If you put up a piece you've finished and you get a feedback on it, and, you know, you think, oh, I should have done that, but you don't have to do it on that model. Just pick your next model and try to work that in. That's what I always recommend, because you never want to get stuck in the it's never done loop. That's just exhausting. I am going to bring this red down through here. I hadn't quite decided what I wanted to do there anyway, so I'm going to bring a little bit more red into the bikini here. more in line with where the skin is up above. There we go. And then we'll just kind of make that go out. And we'll keep the rest of it stone, but that'll bring the red kind of over into that area, which I like. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I ordered some stuff for the stream as well, and mine is gonna... I assumed it would take at least a week. At least. Because I assume Reaper's frozen, so... Unless Cindy's in there, like, you know, packing orders in, like, a giant coat and a scarf and mittens, which I wouldn't put it past her, because Cindy. But the UPS probably also is not thrilled to be traveling around on ice and stuff. So I figured that shipping delays are going to be a thing this week. Pulling but not shipping. Yeah. Yep. So they're getting a bunch of orders and they'll all go out in a giant glut. Got it. Okay, so kind of put a highlight on the top of that so that it looks like the upper edge of the battle bikini is getting some light, and that makes it look more three-dimensional as well. You always want your battle bikini to look properly three-dimensional. It's a rule. Ooh, wow, we did not see... You can tell, guys, that my exercises and my yoga are working, because look, it's like 10:45 and I haven't stretched yet. Okay, stretch break, everybody. Stretch break. Hello, Quickie Tigress. Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, well, at least Reaper should unfreeze, though. So we're going to leave that right on there so you guys can all see all the awesome we're painting. I think that's a really good frame spot, actually, for the model. I'm going to stretch real quick. I got all distracted, realized I was slumping in my chair, and so now it is time to stretch, everybody. Do your stretches. Yep, stretch. Oh, sleet, yeah. Yeah, we had that in Texas. Back when I was in Texas, we had that too, Cookie Tigress. A little pellet sleet, right? And then it just makes this layer of grit. Yeah. Yeah, the battle bikini police. All right, do your stretches. Stretch, everybody, stretch. Get out of your chair if you've been in it for more than half an hour, 45 minutes, or like me, an hour and 15. That's just way too much, especially when you've got a bum back like I do. Do some nice over your head stretches. Kind of feel your body and where you're tense. You know, pay attention to yourself, really. Where you're tense, where you might have pain, so you don't aggravate it. I'm going to do some cat-cow yoga down on the floor real quick. Then we'll get up and hydrate, and then we'll keep painting. I like my cat-cows. They help my back stretch out. And if I stop talking, it's because I have to concentrate on my breath because yoga. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong. Here we are. Awesome. Yay! Stretchies. Get some motion in. Make your spine actually move. Jogging in place. I used to do a lot of that in aerobics in place too. I'm going to do some punches over my head and then I'll be ready. But I found that it hurt my feet bridges because my arches were never that strong. So now I just walk. So Bryce, I wanted to tell you, since you're on the stream, that that exercise that you sent me with the guy on the floor where he does a bridge and then he punches over his head. So I figured out quick that that was way too not stable enough for me. Like wasn't strong enough for it, but I do it against the wall. So I lean back and I punch over my head back and punch over my head back. And that is really good. Like that feels great. That really helps. Oh, hydrate. Hydrate. Cheers, everybody. Mini painting. To mini painting. And our streams together. Awesome. Granny Glasses Online. You're back just in time. We just did our stretch break, Niland. I screwed up my back about 3 weeks ago, and I've had to, like, rebuild it. Yeah, so for those who are, like, if you meet anybody who just isn't quite strong enough to do the floor bridges and the punches at the same time, recommend them just doing it standing. Just lean back a little bit. It's kind of nice because if you do a lean back, like, normally we're doing this, right, all the time, with our minis, with our phones, with everything. So giving the neck a little bit of weight in the opposite direction, I think is really helping me. And so if I'm doing that and I'm punching, then that's even better. Kerniko, your cats are so very, like, human involved. Like, they are totally into you. I can tell this. Hold on, I'm going to get this one in focus because tilting her this way means that she is a little bit out of focus. There we go. Also, I realized I want a little bit of green down on her shin there. Oh, and I need to put some red. The back bands here need to be red, the bands that are holding. And the battle bikini back here needs to be red. There's a lot of stuff we still have to do. Let's just put it that way. Door to inside courtyard. Oh boy. So like the door to the courtyard inside. It's double, and then there's also a double door, but much narrower, into the tower, Pendrake. Though there are no more doors really in that big wide entryway. Sorry guys, brief D&D segue. 15 pounds. I had Mama San's son. Mama San, who is the Reaper shop cat. Panther, her son, was my cat for a long time. Before I had to move. And then he became Katie's cat, briefly. But he was a big, 16-pound black cat. Just going to add a little bit of green here in various places. Just a hint of the color. Kind of blend it in and hide it. And if you stipple it a little bit, then you can work some verdigris off of it if you feel like it. Or just leave it be. A little bit of green, because there's a little bit of green over here too, so working it all in. There we go. And that makes that a little more interesting. Oh yeah, rowing machine. Yeah, rowing machine's nice. It's nice that you have, yeah, abs need work. Me too. Me too, Dogfather. Yeah, it's my core. It's just, I know that my back issues are due to my core, so now I'm just trying to, like, strengthen myself. All right, so let's see here. So here we have another cylinder, right, on the arm. It wraps around to here. So the light is going to be falling really strongly on the top. So we can right away just block in. Block, 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 block. And block that in with our light color, which is half rich leather and half NMM gold highlight. We can just block it, not even worry about blending it. Just pop it in. So that top of that is much lighter. That's just going to be a guide for us. And we're not doing our highest highlight yet. We are leaving a little bit of a shadow to define the area, the detail, the raised ridges on either side here. Now let's block in a shadow. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, if you do martial arts and stuff, yep. I was doing a lot of my exercises at home anyway, because I was doing things like a little bit of Pilates and a lot of physical therapy exercises to help my back. But now that I got out here, one of the things David wanted to do is start yoga together. That's really been nice. Now that I'm a little bit stronger, But I had to build some strength to really even do the yoga, because especially after the back decided to spasm on me. But now I'm feeling a lot stronger, like just after these 3 weeks of kind of working it slowly back up. Okay, so where does the light fall away? All right, we've got our shadow a little bit high, so we're going to drop it a little bit, or bring our highlight down. And this is a very dark shadow, and I'll probably glaze over it, but I'm trying to like get the effect, right? Highlight, shadow, and then an under reflection, remember? So I'm blocking this in really rough so you guys can see it. So then let's bring up this lower edge with a reflection. Oh, Bengals. Yeah, I've always been interested in Bengal cats. I love Abyssinians, though. My first ever pet that I owned when I became an independent Anne was an Abyssinian cat named Ishtar. I still have very fond memories of Ish. She looked like a baby mountain lion. If I had cats again, I would get another Abby in a second. All right, then we're going to get this up here. I'm going to block down that shadow just a little bit with some rich leather. I'm just going to paint the rich leather right over the top, and that will blend it in a little bit. That's the great thing about transparent paints, guys. It's like, even if I'm not glazing, I can just paint a layer of rich leather over the top and it'll start to blend. Yeah, I feel it, you guys. Like, we're really, David has a lot of coworkers, and David himself has said he really misses the office because they had a lot of more fitness tools, standing desks, you know, stuff like that. They had an on-site gym, and they had a climbing wall. They had all sorts of stuff to get you kind of out of the box that you sit in all day when you're at a sitting job. And this has definitely been hard on everybody, right? Push-up plank challenge. Ooh, push-ups with 30-second plank 4 times a day. Nice, Dogfather. Go for it. We believe in you. I'd have to work up to that. Like, I do planks, but I do modified ones because until I'm confident that I'm not going to hurt my back, I don't want to put too much on it. So I do very, very short-term or modified planks at the moment. But if you can do that many push-ups, I am in awe. So there, let's see that. I want to see. Okay, it's gotta go down a little bit more. My shadow is creeping up too high, guys. So if I'm going to block in light, I'll often do it this way. I'll kind of look at it. You want to see, where is the light falling off? There. And that's where you want your highlight to be. And right under that will be a shadow. And above that will be a highlight. The upper surface may not go all to white, and it usually doesn't, but it is significantly lighter. And because the biggest criticism of NMM that I've heard in the past from, this used to be a huge criticism when NMM was just starting to gain traction, was that it doesn't look right from all angles. But my counter to that argument is always that you have certain viewing angles on the model. So your responsibility as a painter is to make sure that it looks right from each of those solid viewing angles. So we want it to look good from this angle. We also want it to look right from this angle. But really, the only viewing angle for this particular arm guard is really from here. So as long as we can make it look correct from this angle, we're pretty good. People are probably going to look at the model. When you have a model, you've got a couple ways to look at it, right? Like our monk model here. She's probably going to be looked at from this angle, and then they're going to look at her back. And like Dark Sword Dragonkin, we're going to look at him from this angle, and then we're going to turn around and look at his back. We're not really going to be looking at like any weird off angles unless there's a tiny detail we see that we want to investigate, right? So as long as your NMM looks good from the primary viewing angles of the model, you really don't have to worry. Wow, you're like into it, Dogfather. Total props to you. Like, I miss having the weight machines and equipment and stuff. I actually just ordered an aerobic step so that I could do some hamstring stretches and stuff like that. that I normally would do like outside, but it's been like cold, and it feels weird when because I do a lot of my PT in the evenings, so it feels weird to have to like get my coat on and my shoes on to go outside to do one of my hamstring stretches at 10:30 p.m. So I decided to order an aerobic step so I could do it at home inside. And the step I could probably do a little bit of cardio on it. 25 push-ups. Okay, so 25 push-ups followed by a 30-second plank. Every day for a month, Dogfather? Is that the challenge? Maybe I'll start trying. Maybe I'll see how many push-ups I can do. I have been pushing myself up more because I've been doing the yoga stuff. So I have been doing like sphinxes and cobras and stuff like that. That where you're supposed to push yourself up partially at least. So now I'm kind of mucking around here with my highlight to try and kind of get it, figure out how I want it to look. And if it's going to look correct. And what I need to alter to make it look right. So this is another way you can do things. You can just block things in really rough. Instead of blending them slowly like I do more often, you can just block things in really rough until your light is correct. And just use this kind of thing where you're just blocking it in. Blocking it in to make it look right. And my shadow is too dark right now, so I'm going to correct that by grabbing some rich leather. Let's see here. Oh, we are almost to 11. Amount of push-ups vary with ability. Your level is 25. So, okay, so I should start aiming for just like 5 followed by a plank. And I should work up from there over the course of the month. So for me, instead of doing like a straight level, I think I would start with a varied level, right? So I would start trying 5 push-ups and trying a 20-second plank, and then raise it. If that's easy, then I raise it. That's kind of more my style these days, because I know that I'm unfit and I don't want to overdo it. Overdoing it means my back yells at me. All right, so glazing with the rich leather. You can see I put a very thin layer. It's actually a pretty heavy glaze over the top of all of that. So ideally, I probably would have gone a little bit lighter with my shadow here and worked down into it. That's what I prefer to do. But the bars that you're seeing here, the little bars of highlight, where we've got 2 little stripes of highlight with a darker area between them, and then we've got a really dark area coming up to another highlight. See, look at that. While it's wet, we can see where our highlight should be. Key. Why isn't this looking right? Because I've got my highlight in the wrong place. Look at that light. See it? Now, where is it actually? Oh, my highlight isn't the right shape. Well, then, we can use that. Sometimes when your paint is wet, if you have your light at the right angle, it can tell you where you have a problem. And it's because this arm guard actually does bulge out, just like these leg guards do. It bulges out over her muscle here. So that's why it wasn't looking quite right to me and how I had to keep messing with it. So I have to curve out that area a bit. So little bits of adjustments. So that's going to look a lot better. Yeah, it already looks better. It was just the wrong shape of Oh, newbie. Right, exactly, Shuttle. Well, that's what, and this is one way you can do it, right? Block it in. Block in. Remember we're a highlight on cylinders. Cylinders are one of the easiest things to start with, honestly. Although this cylinder, like I said, is a little bit odd because it's wider here and narrower here. But it's like highlight on the top and then a highlight on the side where the light is going to bounce toward your eyes, and then a under reflection on the bottom. And if you just follow the highlight, shadow, under reflection, and just muck about until it looks right. And I mean, right there you saw me even lay down a glaze, so I had wet over the whole thing. You could just lay down a layer of water, guys, okay? Here, let's do it. Once everything's set and dry, we could just use some water. Although water doesn't hold together on the surface necessarily as well. And I'll pull the rest of it off. I don't want to leave a huge pool of water on my paint. But then we can look at it and see where our highlight should be. There it is. I've turned it toward the light source that I'm using, my primary big ring light, and my highlight on the paint is falling exactly where it should. And if I put my hand down here, I should see an under reflection. If I can get real close. Nope, not going to do it today. Lost my water. But if it was a really reflective property, then you could. So, yeah, and I always use the ferrule as a... But my ferrule is flawed, Derek. My ferrule is flawed because I've got 2 different light sources, maybe even 3. Because I've got the giant ring light, and that's the big strong one coming from that direction. And then from the other direction, I have my Reaper, like ReaperCon light, my little L-shaped light, and also an open sunny window, like a big sunny window. So it's not direct sunlight, but it's reflecting off of the window across the way, which makes this desk fantastic for painting light, of course. But yeah, so this one we kind of went in slowly on, Derek, to just the way I usually paint NMM. But here I decided to just kind of roughly block it in more and then adjust. Yeah, hard mode NMM, yeah. 3 light sources. No, let's not. Let's not. It's hard enough to do 2. If you have different colors. I'm still after you, Mr. Schubert, to paint a bust. You're not off the hook. Did I show you my latest one? Have you been on the stream when I showed the Templar that I was working on? I'll probably work on my own stream this afternoon. I think I'm going to work on the Templar. And try to get more of the Sky Earth blocked in. So this is my baby. And I want to work on her hair, and I want to work on more on the Sky Earth on the lion. Get more of the feathers blocked in. So, but yeah. So that's the hard mode metal. The Sky Earth crazy on the lion shoulder pad. That's hard mode NMM. I have to stop and think about every freaking feather. Yeah, it's a great model. It's from Galapagos. They just do beautiful models. Such great stuff. I have another one hiding in the closet somewhere. I keep thinking I should go to their site and look at what's new. And then I keep thinking, no, don't go to their site. You'll want to order stuff. I'm going to blend in some of this highlight. Bring it more up. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like what I want. And again, this is just adjusting, just tuning. Remembering that I want light on the top. Because there would be light on the top, and you would see that from this angle. And then the upper surface that's facing toward the sky is going to be a lighter bronze. Until we get to this point where the light's going to reflect out toward the eye of the viewer. And we get that hard highlight again. Which I'm blending in a little bit because, again, we used kind of a soft diffused highlight here on the breastplate. And so I'm doing the same thing. I'm working toward the same thing out here. Oh, you like the Sky Earth, Derek? That's cool. Yeah, that's my ambitious because, you know, I've only done Sky Earth on one thing and it was a round shield. So the lion is my new thing. Like, she's my new competition piece, that Templar. So, and the face is the most realistic I've ever done. I'm very sad, eternally sad that you guys can't see really the details of the face on this, just with this background. Maybe I need to switch to a lighter background. It always washes out the face a little bit on this background. But I spent days on that freaking face. Trying to make it really realistic. Because I decided I wanted to try to do that kind of style. Because it was something I'd never done before. The best stuff, the most fun that you can have in mini painting sometimes is to try something you've never tried before. But just enter into it not expecting anything. Just be like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to break down how it works. Honing your analytical muscles, your mental analytical muscles for mini painting is very rewarding. It helps you deconstruct what you're seeing. Mini painting in general is accomplished by means of very few mechanical techniques. So a lot of the stuff that you see, it's just like, it's stippling again, but with a, you know, tiny brush and really thin paint, or it's, you know, it's layering again, but they're leaving their paint a little thicker, and so they're getting this texture, and they're moving their brush in this direction, you know, kind of, what can help once we have art museums again, but I always like going to art museums and kind of deconstructing what I see in paintings. Even like oil paintings, kind of looking at the brushstroke they use, where they put their shadows and highlights, stuff like that. It can expand your way of thinking. It can help you with this hobby, believe it or not. art is art and brushwork is brushwork, and some people are real pros at it. If you are in Florida, speaking of Florida again, if you have not gone to the Salvador Dali Museum, go when it reopens, if it's not open now. I liked Dali a lot in college. I was an art student studying art history, and I liked his stuff. I had a couple of prints of his work up in my dorm room, but I did not realize the mad skills that man had until I went to the museum last year when I was in Florida and saw those paintings, how huge they are and how amazingly detailed they are for the medium he's working in. And just the scale of the piece. That man, serious props. Holy wow, was he good. He was great with light. He was great with form. He was just like freaking master. And I think that people overlook that because they like to emphasize the surrealist part of his stuff, but his technical skills were just like, oh, so good. Really, really a master. You finished painting your frost giant princess. Good. Yay. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you, Derek. I get under the heaviness of that, project that's sitting on me, as well. I understand that heavy feeling. I'm working through that now, and just sitting down and doing things. Trying not to. I was just talking about this book earlier on the stream, but I've been listening to Shannon Lee's book about her father, Bruce Lee, and about just, fixing yourself. It's a self-help book, but it's got cool Bruce Lee tidbits in it. But it's called Be Water, My Friend. And she talks about that. It essentially is the concept of getting caught in the gap, where you think about doing something and then you're like, no, I've got to do this other thing or this other thing or this other thing. So you don't do the thing. And then it kind of sits there. You get caught in the gap. So I've been trying to make myself, when I think, you know what, I need to do this, I've been trying to just make myself sit down and do it. Even if it's only for a little bit of time. Been trying to work out my gaps. So that's where I get with miniatures sometimes. If I'm like a commission piece or whatever I'm trying to work on and I've just been stuck on it. It's been sitting there staring at me forever. Aw. Procrastination, yeah. Well, and I was a master procrastinator for a very long time, Longberry. But I like that analogy that she makes to the gap, to like, it's the gap between thinking and action. And a lot of us think a lot about stuff and then we never act on stuff, right? And we can have perfectly good reasons for that. The world is always ready to give us plenty of reasons not to do things. The world is all about that. But I think it can kind of get poisonous after a while. It gets kind of toxic in your head if you constantly are thinking about something and you never sit down and do it. And then you give yourself crap about it, right? You sit there and you feel guilty about it. But there are other things that are more important or whatever, I think I'm trying to get away from that internal guilt complex too. Just get stuff done. And I know perfectly well because this show has taught me, guys. This show is like in action teaching us that if we only sat down for a few minutes a day, look at all the work we get done. Like even if I was sitting here for half an hour instead of an hour and a half, like I would still be getting these beautiful models like painted in a much shorter period of time than me sitting them on the shelf and staring at them and wishing I was working on them but not really working on them. So I guess it's a mindset thing. Anyway, we smoothed out this a lot, so you guys can see how I've been working on smoothing in. I've lightened my dark a bit, because a lot of this is very much facing the outside. It's going to get a lot of bounce light. I altered the shape of my highlight. I blended it in more. I lightened the top here, but I still have a little bit of a shadow. It's just a very light shadow, because all of this is facing the sky. I did take my highlight down a little bit. Remember, we did that here too. We diffused it, and then we came back in with that bright white light once we figured out exactly where we wanted it to be. And I'm still working on the space down here, and I'd like to introduce some greens in here and stuff like that. But overall, we've blocked in and then smoothed out. So yeah. So otherwise, let's back out and look at her, because it's about time. It's actually past time. We've gone over time again. That's okay. I feel like I need to make up a little bit of time from my back being out and doing shorter streams and stuff, and missing some streams for for allowing for backrest. So we're just making up for that, right? So there we go, guys. Like, that's where we are right now. Actually, let's get a little closer. Ah, there we go. That's a nice, I liked it when I had her, yeah, kind of positioned here. I think that's really showing how we're progressing really well on her. Alrighty, yeah, I'll be over on my channel later. I'll either be working on that. I may, it depends on what I feel like working on, but I'm probably going to work on the Templar unless I work on a D&D figure. And I'll switch depending. I'll either be on D&D channel or I'll be on art channel, depending. Yeah, don't even get into my guilt about like all the stuff I need to put up on World Anvil. Don't even get into that. Pendrake. All right. Aw, thanks, Michael. Awesome. I'm really glad you enjoy it. I'm glad you all enjoy it. Thank you all for coming out today. It was super fun. This was a great stream. I think we talked about a lot of useful stuff. Those of you who are frozen, I hope you thaw. Nalinda, thank you so much for the raid. Yes. Have a good one. All right, guys. Have fun, and I'll see you later today on twitchtv.com/paintingbig or tomorrow morning on this channel. All right? Bye.